Go left together. Go left.
Go left.
Would you say that he's my pretend brother?
He's my real brother!
The movie kicks off in the bustling city of Los Angeles, where we meet Will Sharp, a former soldier of the United States Army. That morning, he's desperately making a phone call, trying to secure funds from the state insurance office for his wife's urgent cancer surgery. But his efforts hit a wall, again. The insurance representatives keep giving him the runaround, claiming that Amy's specific illness isn't covered under their policy. Frustrated yet unwilling to burden his wife with more stress, Will lies to her, assuring her that their claim has been approved. It's a painful deception, but he believes it's the right thing to do. Across town, we're introduced to Cam, a dedicated ambulance officer. Alongside her partner Scott, she rushes to the scene of a car accident. A young child is trapped inside the wreckage, injured and in critical condition. Every second counts. Working swiftly, Cam and Scott navigate the delicate rescue, carefully removing the metal obstructing the child's escape. Their quick thinking pays off. The child is freed and rushed to the hospital for further treatment. Meanwhile, Will leaves home under the pretense of a job interview, but his true destination is the lavish home of his adoptive brother, Danny. Danny isn't just any ordinary man, he's a notorious bank robber, and his residence is a clear reflection of his criminal lifestyle, with stolen luxury cars scattered around and his crew moving in and out. From the moment Will steps inside, Danny senses something's wrong. It doesn't take much pressing for Will to break down and confess his dire financial situation. His wife's surgery depends on money he simply doesn't have. As luck would have it, Danny is a man short for a massive heist planned for that very day. He offers Will a way out of his crisis, a cut of the loot in exchange for his participation. Will hesitates, torn between morality and the desperation to save Amy. But with no other options and time running out, he makes the difficult choice. He's in. Elsewhere, during a break, Scott shares some good news with Cam. The child they rescued earlier is now stable. But Cam barely reacts. Her indifference doesn't go unnoticed, and Scott begins to understand why no one wants to work with her. Meanwhile, two LAPD officers, Zach and Mark, are patrolling the city. As they cruise through the streets, Zach recalls a girl he once met at a bank, and feeling emboldened, decides today might be the day to finally talk to her. At the same time, Danny and his crew are already in motion. Driving an armored truck through the streets of LA, they make their way toward their target, the LA Federal Bank. Instead of barging in through the front, they opt for a stealthier approach, using an underground tunnel. An unkempt homeless man notices them but remains unnoticed by the crew. Undeterred, they park their truck and set their sights on the massive prize, a staggering $32 million. Moving methodically, they disable the security cameras and mask up before stepping into the bank's elevator. Just as they begin their operation, officers Zach and Mark arrive outside, parking their patrol car near the entrance. Unbeknownst to them, the homeless man had discreetly tipped off two men nearby, who immediately relay the information to Captain Monroe. Evaluating the situation, Monroe instructs his team to let things unfold naturally, for now. Inside, Zach, unaware of the ongoing heist, knocks on the bank's front door. Danny, posing as the bank manager, reluctantly answers. But Zach isn't buying the act and insists on stepping inside, forcing Danny's hand. He lets him in while the rest of the crew hides in the shadows, their weapons trained on the terrified bank staff. Zach is looking for a specific employee, Kim. But when Danny gives him a false last name that doesn't match the one on Kim's name tag, Zach realizes something is off. The situation escalates in a heartbeat. Danny swiftly pulls a gun on Zach, forcing him to signal to Mark outside that everything is fine. Seizing the brief moment of distraction, the robbers frantically begin stuffing cash into 4 large bags. But just as they're about to make their escape, an unexpected problem arises. Their getaway truck won't start. Ironically, it's Officer Mark who unknowingly comes to the robbers' rescue, helping to jump-start their getaway truck without realizing what he's done. Meanwhile, inside the bank, the crew prepares to make their exit, dragging Zach along as a hostage. As they step outside, Mark peers through the glass doors, just in time to witness the robbery in progress. Before he can react, chaos erupts. The armored truck suddenly rams into the patrol car, and the robbers open fire on Mark. Just then, the two mysterious men in the car suit up and spring into action. Within moments, sirens wail as a swarm of police vehicles converges on the scene. With bullets flying and the police forming a perimeter, Cam is alerted and immediately rushes to assist. Outside the bank, a massive shootout erupts between the robbers and the responding officers. Danny and Will race through the bank, fighting for their lives, while the remaining members of the crew hold their ground. One by one, the robbers fall, first their driver, then the rest, as they're gradually cornered with no way out. Inside, Zach struggles against his captors, attempting to disrupt their escape. In the heat of the moment, Will, overwhelmed by the tension, instinctively pulls the trigger on Zach multiple times. With no time to lose, he and Danny make a break for it, dashing through the building as police storm the bank. Mark, discovering his partner gravely wounded, immediately calls for medical assistance. Meanwhile, Danny, still determined to get out, engages in a relentless gunfight before slipping into disguise. At the same time, Cam rushes to Zach's aid, quickly stabilizing him and loading him into an ambulance. Just as they attempt to leave, Danny appears, taking control of the situation. He incapacitates Scott and hijacks the ambulance, taking both Cam and the stolen money hostage. As they speed toward a police blockade, Danny and Will keep up the act, pretending to be paramedics rushing an injured officer to the hospital. The deception works and they're waved through. However, Mark soon pieces things together when he finds Scott, immediately alerting HQ. Captain Monroe arrives, demanding answers. To his frustration, two officers blame the failure on a rookie's mistake, further fueling Mark's anger. Monroe, however, has no time for blame. He informs them that a police chopper is already tracking the ambulance. In a tense alleyway standoff, as Danny and Will focus on the helicopter, Cam sees her chance. She grabs the fire hose and tries to escape, but Danny catches her at gunpoint, forcing her back inside. Meanwhile, Zach begins flatlining, forcing Cam to shift her focus back to saving him. As Will speeds through the streets, the chopper locks onto them, alerting the entire police force to their location. The situation escalates further when FBI agent Clark is brought in. He's quickly briefed and immediately recognizes the mastermind behind the heist, none other than their most wanted criminal, Daniel Sharp. Eager to take down his longtime target, Clark joins forces with the LAPD, coordinating the chase. As Danny and Will believe they've shaken off their pursuers, flashing sirens suddenly flood the streets. Police cars swarm around them, closing in fast. Will, an expert driver, pulls off daring maneuvers, ramming police vehicles and pushing the ambulance to its limits. But the sheer number of law enforcement officers proves overwhelming. Desperate, Cam pleads with Danny to help save Zach, reminding him that he's still a human being, not just a criminal. Surprisingly, Danny relents, assisting Cam in reviving the wounded officer. But Will sees the writing on the wall. They won't outrun the cops forever. In a last-ditch effort, Danny contacts an old accomplice, Poppy, urgently requesting a diversion. He offers a staggering $8 million in exchange for 5 ambulances to serve as decoys. Given Poppy's criminal past, he agrees without hesitation. Meanwhile, Agent Clark puts the pieces together, recognizing that this isn't just a robbery, it's an orchestrated escape by a seasoned criminal. Determined not to let Danny slip away again, Clark coordinates with the LAPD to trap the ambulance. Captain Monroe orders every available unit to box them in, connecting his radio to the one inside the ambulance in an attempt to negotiate. But Danny, high on adrenaline, isn't backing down. Over the radio, he boasts that he's the greatest robber in history, taunting the police that they'll never catch him. Just then, their situation worsens. The ambulance is moments away from being completely surrounded. Mark, still burning with revenge, lines up a shot to take down Danny. Sensing the danger, Danny turns his gun on Mark, ready to pull the trigger. But before he can fire, Cam intervenes, stepping between them, forcing Danny's aim toward her instead. As the chase intensifies, Will makes a desperate move, swerving the ambulance into an underground parking lot, hoping to lose their pursuers, but the LAPD stays hot on their heels. As they close in, Danny's patience wears thin. He threatens to shoot Cam if they don't back off, firing warning shots at Mark's car. Captain Monroe, seeing the situation spiral out of control, reluctantly orders his men to stand down, at least for now. Clark steps forward, offering Monroe a fresh perspective, one that only he understands. He reveals a crucial detail. He and Danny actually went to college together. But while their paths seemed similar at first, Danny's life took a darker turn. Clark recounts how Danny was rigorously trained by his psychotic father, shaping him into one of the most calculated criminals in history. Over the past decade, Danny has successfully robbed 37 banks, cementing his reputation as an untouchable mastermind. As the tension inside the ambulance thickens, Cam suddenly notices something alarming. Zach is still bleeding. Upon closer inspection, dread washes over her. There's another gunshot wound. Panic sets in as she realizes the injury is far worse than they initially thought. He needs surgery now, or he won't make it. Desperate and running out of options, they contact a hospital surgeon for emergency guidance. Will, sensing the urgency, demands that Danny take the wheel while he assists Cam in the life-or-death procedure. Over the phone, the surgeon walks them through the delicate process, removing the bullet lodged in Zach's spleen. But there's a catch. They have only 60 seconds to do it. If they fail, Zach's spleen will rupture and he'll die right there in the ambulance. With time slipping away, Will and Cam steady their hands, moving with precision and focus. Every second feels like an eternity. But against all odds, they succeed. Zach is alive. Relief washes over them, but they barely have a moment to breathe. Meanwhile, Danny remains several steps ahead. He contacts Poppy's crew and the voice on the other end gives him the confirmation he needs. "We're ready for you." But the police aren't letting up. Under the mistaken belief that Zach didn't survive the surgery, Monroe gives a grim order: Danny is to be taken out on sight. No more negotiations. As snipers lock onto the speeding ambulance, Clark frantically warns Kim, trying to prevent a bloodbath. Inside, Cam relays the message, screaming at Danny to duck. Bullets rip through the air, barely missing their targets. The chaos escalates as Danny maneuvers the ambulance, forcing police vehicles to crash in a desperate bid to stay ahead. Seizing a brief moment of calm, Danny calls Monroe, shoving the phone into Cam's hands while keeping his gun trained on her. The intensity spikes as shots ring out, narrowly missing their mark. Suddenly, Will slams on the brakes, sending everyone lurching forward. The sudden stop ignites a boiling confrontation between the brothers. The tension that's been simmering between them finally erupts. Will, pushing back against Danny's reckless decisions, grabs the phone, his voice cold and firm as he issues a warning to Clark, "Back off." Then, without waiting for a response, he ends the call. As the high-speed chase continues, a moment of unexpected calm settles inside the ambulance. Cam, now seeing Will in a different light, watches as he donates his own blood for a transfusion to help Zach. She realizes he isn't just another criminal, there's more to his story. As Will quietly admits, he never wanted this life. He only turned to crime out of desperation, willing to do anything to save his wife. In a rare moment of respite, Will calls Amy, keeping up the facade that he landed a simple courier job. He hides the danger he's in, speaking to her as if everything is normal. As he hangs up, Danny, sensing the weight of the moment, chucks him a pair of AirPods. The two brothers lean back, letting the music dull the tension, if only for a moment. But their escape is far from over. Navigating toward the LA River, Danny and Will believe they've finally shaken the cops off their tail. They wait for Poppy's crew to come through with the plan. Yet Monroe isn't fooled. He orders the police helicopters to continue the chase, and before long, a chopper spots them. As it closes in, Danny fires several shots at the aircraft, forcing it to pull back. For a brief moment, they think they've bought themselves some time. Their relief is short-lived. Up ahead, police cars have strategically positioned themselves, blocking every possible escape route. But they underestimate Will's skills behind the wheel. With expert precision, he swerves under a bridge, finding temporary cover from the police above. Seizing the opportunity, one of Danny's men rushes into action. In mere minutes, he repaints the ambulance, camouflaging it just in time as police units gather only a block away. The finishing touches are rough, but it's enough to sell the illusion. Now comes the crucial part of the plan, the decoys. Danny's crew scatters, each taking off in different directions in identical ambulances, confusing the police. One decoy is intercepted, its driver playing the part of a panicked paramedic, pretending to be clueless about the entire situation. Meanwhile, another decoy, driven by Poppy's son, is set up for maximum chaos. He places a brick on the accelerator, then bails out just in time. The unmanned vehicle barrels toward the police barricade at full speed, and then boom, the massive explosion engulfs the blockade, sending officers diving for cover. Fire and debris rain down, shaking the entire area. In the midst of the carnage, Danny, Will, and Cam race toward the next phase of their escape. But with the police more determined than ever, how long can they really stay ahead? Mark, spotting Poppy's son fleeing the scene, immediately gives chase. At the same time, chaos erupts when a sleek purple car, remotely operated, speeds into the fray. Without warning, a mounted Gatling gun emerges from its roof and unleashes a relentless hail of bullets. The sheer firepower mows down several officers, and in the carnage, Captain Monroe falls. Determined not to let Poppy's son escape, Mark corners him in a tight alley. With no way out, Poppy's son reaches for his gun, but Mark is faster. He fires, delivering a fatal shot. News of his son's death reaches Poppy, sending him into a blind rage. Overcome with grief, he vows to make those responsible suffer. Meanwhile, at Poppy's stronghold, Will tells Cam to stay in the ambulance as he steps out. Inside, a groggy Zach finally awakens, weak but alert. He immediately urges Cam to arm herself, revealing a hidden gun stashed inside the vehicle. Inside the compound, Danny follows through on his promise, handing over the $8 million to Poppy. He even offers his condolences, but it's not enough. Poppy is beyond reason. No amount of money can bring back his son. In his eyes, only blood will settle the debt. He makes his decision. Zach and Cam will die to even the score. Will, a soldier with an unshakable moral code, refuses to stand by while innocent lives are taken. Despite Danny's warnings not to cross Poppy, Will stands his ground. Poppy, enraged by his defiance, orders his men to execute him. But Will and Danny are far from easy targets. In a split second, they turn the tables, unleashing their lethal skills. Gunfire erupts, and one by one, Poppy's men fall. In the chaos, Danny will finally take down Poppy himself.
A real brother!
As they make their escape, the ambulance door suddenly swings open. Cam, startled and on edge from the ordeal, instinctively pulls the trigger, hitting Will. Danny's instincts take over. Seeing his brother wounded, he floors the accelerator, racing toward the nearest hospital with the police closing in yet again. Inside the ambulance, Cam fights to stop Will's bleeding. Weak and slipping in and out of consciousness, Will reaches into his pocket and hands her a wad of cash. "Make sure my wife gets this," he mutters. Cam, understanding the depth of his sacrifice, discreetly tucks the money into her bag and continues working to keep him alive. As they arrive at the hospital, the ambulance is immediately surrounded by a sea of flashing lights and armed officers. Danny, stepping out to check on Will, spots a gun. Zach is holding it. His mind jumps to one conclusion. Zach shot his brother. Fury ignites in Danny's eyes. He raises his weapon, ready to retaliate, but before he can pull the trigger, Cam yells out a desperate confession. "It was me. I shot him," she cries. Her voice trembles as she pleads for understanding, explaining that in the chaos at Poppy's compound, fear took over and she fired without thinking. But Danny doesn't care. The betrayal, the loss, the desperation, it's all too much. With no escape and no future, he makes a final, twisted decision. If he's going down, he'll do it on his own terms. He slowly opens the ambulance door, stepping into the floodlights, gun in hand. With cameras rolling and police poised to fire, he prepares to make a statement to the world by executing Cam. But before he can act, a shot rings out. Will, the brother who once dreamed of serving justice, makes the hardest decision of his life. With his fading strength, he pulls the trigger on Danny. The weight of the moment is suffocating. Danny, the brother who always protected him, stares in shock. In his final moments, memories of their childhood flash before his eyes. A silent understanding passes between them before Danny finally collapses, lifeless. From a distance, a heart-wrenching scream cuts through the night. Amy. She stands frozen outside the hospital, her face contorted in anguish as she cries out for her husband. Hearing her, Cam straightens, determination in her eyes. Her job isn't done yet. Turning to Mark, she pleads with him to help save Will. At first, Mark hesitates. To him, Will is still a criminal. But then Cam reveals the truth. Will saved Zach's life. The weight of the day's events finally sinks in. Mark, understanding that not everything is black and white, softens. He helps rush Will inside, where the doctors take over. With Will in medical care, Cam finally allows herself a breath. Before leaving, she discreetly approaches Amy and slips the bundle of money into her baby's pram, ensuring that Will's final wish is fulfilled. Later, Cam visits the young child she rescued earlier that morning. Sitting beside the hospital bed, she gently holds the child's hand, reflecting on everything that has happened. The horrors of the day have changed her. She now understands her duty to save lives isn't just a job, it's a responsibility. Meanwhile, in another part of the hospital, Clark and Zach discuss the day's events. Clark, knowing that Will's fate hangs in the balance, asks Zach if he's willing to testify. Zach, still holding on to everything that happened, looks down at a photo of Will. After a long pause, he finally speaks. "He saved my life." The weight of gratitude and the complexity of the choices made that day hangs heavily in the room.